Hey everyone, this is Disc Junkie, and welcome back to the Mancave of Madness. So I know it's been quite a while since I made the last Mancave video, but as you know, I've actually had my hands full, to say the least, with basically just rebuilding my man cave from the ground level up, as well as actually unboxing all of my film collection, which comes to roughly around 70 moving boxes of films and memorabilia, and it's just been crazy trying to put this together. And I've also realized that it's actually so much easier to box things up than to unbox them, because when you have a new place like this and you're trying to settle in, trying to figure out where everything's supposed to go, it's just a nightmare, because it's so hard to plan things and sort of kind of decide, like, okay, so you open up a box and then you're trying to think, like, okay, so where is this supposed to go? And it's so hard to get an overall idea of how much stuff you have, because before you actually unbox it, you're not going to remember every little thing. So it becomes this sort of constant struggle of trying to understand, like, where does this go? And you open up another box and you're thinking, like, oh, I thought I had a handle of things. Now I'll notice that, oh, I have this big box set, or I have this bizarre thing which I don't know where I'm going to put. And then everything suddenly just halts again. So yeah, it's been really, really tough trying to put things together, but I think I've actually come quite a long way. And yeah, I've actually done quite a bit of planning trying to get this done. And one of the first things which I did in the preparation for making this video and in preparation for starting the work was actually to create this Excel sheet. And this is something I started doing in my last man cave, where I was in the apartment, if you remember. Then I actually started doing this, where I would make an Excel sheet and actually draw out the man cave in scale, and you can see it right here. And we might actually take a look at this just down on the table. So if I just flip this around, you can actually see that we have the Man Cave of Madness right here, and this is basically all the rooms on the top level. And I'm pretty sure that you remember these places, but just to give you a brief idea, we are currently in the hallway. We are standing roughly right here, and you can also notice that apart from all these outlines, you will see that I also have these gray spaces here. And all of these gray spaces, you see these little boxes all around the walls and stuff. These are essentially furniture. So what you're looking at right here, this is actually this table right here. So if I am to have this on the right position, it would roughly be like this if we're going to angle it correctly. So yeah, that's that table here. So this is where I'm standing. And then over there, we got the TCM room, or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre room, because yeah, I'm actually taking a single room and turning it into a sort of devoted space for my Texas Chainsaw Massacre collection. So yeah, I mean, if you watch my videos, you probably know already that I have quite a few copies of that movie, to say the least. Then over there, we have the office, as I've decided to call it, and this is basically, I don't know, the beige or the brown room. And then we have the hallway, like I said, where I'm standing. Got the staircase down there. There's a small sort of cabinet behind me. And we also have this garret space, which is just inside this wall here. Then we got a bathroom as well. And then we also have something which I've decided to dub the theater, but you might remember it, I don't know what you would say, the red room, I suppose we could call it, because it has a very sort of notable red floor. And we can actually start with the red room. So I don't know if you remember what the red room used to look like, but we can actually take a quick look at that. So let's just do a quick recap and look at what the red room looked like before I started rebuilding my man cave. And after that, we're going to move over to a sort of time lapse, as we usually do, to show you the progress. But first up, here's the red room in its previous state. And as you can see here, we basically have, a red floor, like I mentioned, and then just, it's pretty high ceiling, pretty straightforward room, very sort of similar to what I have in the old man cave in our old house. And you can also see there are some sort of cabinet doors built into the wall on the left side. But, what the hell, let's just go ahead and roll the time lapse, shall we?
Well, here we go. Are you ready? Hey, I said, are you ready?
What? Oh, yes, I remember. I think so.
In the red room, or the theater as I've decided to call it. And like you saw in the time lapse, and I can see behind me, there's actually been quite a bit of progress in here. And I thought we would just sort of flip the camera because that's making things a lot easier. I'm just going to show you a little bit of what I've been doing in here. And as you can tell straight off, there's basically 2 rows of identical Billy bookcases, and these were actually bookcases which I have kept from the apartment. And the problem was that I would probably have returned these to IKEA, seeing as it was within the 1-year limit. And if you actually have furniture that's not older than 1 year from the purchase, you can actually return them, and they don't even ask you about it. You know, it's a very, very good policy, even though, you know, they should basically be unused, but it usually works. So in any case, I couldn't actually do that because I had been... it's a bit foolish of me, but I actually decided to sort of mount them to the walls and sort of, you know, putting bolts and screws in them to make sure that they didn't fall over. And with that, you know, if you have actually made any sort of damage to them, even if it's constructional damage, you can't return them. So I couldn't return them. So what I actually did was that I took my full height billies, which were too big for this room because the ceiling is very low, and I actually cut some of them down. So some of these bookcases here, you can almost see it if you look closely. You can see that the one on the left here, that's an original low billy. It actually has this slight lining, which you can see, whereas this one is actually cut straight off. So I actually sawed down a bunch of these. So this is a simple tip in case you have actually full-size billies and you want to go for lower styles instead. You can actually saw them down, just saw them directly above this sort of middle baseboard, if you will, and then you will end up with a billy which is exactly the same height at your low style billy. So if you want to match those, that's very possible, but obviously you will end up with a rough edge on top here. And that is also the reason why I decided to buy some of these really big wooden boards, which I laid straight on top here. And these are, if I remember correctly, I think they're 40 centimeters in depth, which means that there's actually a bit of space behind here. And you can also see that behind this shelf in particular, there's actually an opening. But this also helps us to see some of the space I got behind the shelf here. So you can see we got roughly maybe 15, 20 centimeters, something around there, until I hit the wall. And you can also see the old opening to one of the cabinets. And there's actually one of the cabinet doors because I decided to unhinge these just because, you know, the door were in the way. And the main reason for why I even decided to place the shelves like this and remove the doors was because these openings, the opening you see behind there for the doors, those actually went above this line for the billies. So they were up to about here. And that's also why I decided to take the time and effort to place some of these really, really thin sort of backing boards. This is basically the kind of board that you have as a backing for the Billy bookcase usually. You have this on the next one over, but yeah, you know what I'm talking about. It's basically these thin boards, like, I don't know what you'd call them. So I purchased some of these boards at like the local lumber yard or sort of warehouse place and whatever. So these are just basically simple, thin wooden boards. So I just nailed those to the wall, and these aren't even big boards. You can see that they actually end right beneath the shelf there. So that's very much an illusion, because I wanted to create this white backdrop for the shelf. You know, instead of having this typical wallpaper, I just wanted a white background right here in the shelf area. And the reason for that is because on this side, you will remember that the wall was actually painted in this really, really annoying sort of, I don't know if you call it like a darkish pink. You can actually see it right here in the corner. There's some of the old color, and then you understand why I wanted to place this board on top. Now, I'm also planning to put some of these, what do you call these, like, I don't know what you call this, but yeah, I want to place some of these wooden pieces to cover up the edges here. So I want to make this look better, but I haven't really gotten around, had the time to do that yet, but that's also in the future. So yeah, I do want to cover up that little space where you can see the wallpaper. But that's basically why I did there. So yeah, we got these boards, and they don't go all the way. They basically go right to the center. I had to cut these down so they were a little bit longer, and then I cut the edges off on the sides to make sure that I got a nice little, you know, straight and yeah, basically just a fine edge for this center section, which is going to be more visible than the stuff you have on the sides. So going close here, you will see that this side was actually cut, but it's pretty clean cut, but you can still see some slight markings on the edges there. But I just place those towards the wall, and then you're not really going to notice that. So with that being said, this is basically what I've been doing here in terms of remodeling the shelves. There's also some of these on the floor, just things I haven't gotten around to, but these are probably seen in the time-lapse video as well. But these are basically these plastic sort of L-shaped angles, which I'm just planning to place over the edge. I don't know if I can actually do this, but just to hold it up here, you can see the idea behind this is to just cover up this top portion, because it will create much of a cleaner look, or at least, you know, in my opinion, that's what it's going to do. And with that, I'm also going to be able to hide the fact that this top board is actually two boards. So you won't be seeing this, and then it will look more coherent and more stylish. Or that's at least what I'm going for. But I haven't gotten around to that, so we'll come back to that in a future video, I suppose. But yeah, that is basically it in terms of the furniture, I think. All of the stuff here is basically stuff I had from before. The two chairs, nothing new. And then there's just some boxes, and also the TV, which was actually left behind by the previous owners. I haven't tried this TV too much. I basically just put it in here because I want to create some kind of a theater area, if you will, so I can sit there and just watch movies late at night. And I'm also thinking that I'm probably going to use some of the same ideas as I had in the old house. Basically putting some red curtains in here, eventually creating sort of a cinematic backdrop, and then just have the TV in front to create this very sort of red theater feel. And that's also part of, you know, I really like the red or orange type flooring here, very 70s like. So I want to maintain a very red feel in this room, which is also, I think, is why these red chairs, which I have from before, will work very well. And just, yeah, I just want to add an overall sort of red glow to this room. I do have the red lamp, which isn't in here right now. I'm not sure I'm going to keep that in here, but probably will. We'll just see. So aside from that, then I'm obviously going for symmetry as usual. Decided to place some of these Benno bookcases here, the Benno Tower. Not sure if these will be in here, but I'm thinking maybe they will. We'll just see. But I placed them there for now, so might change that, but that's basically what we got. And I'm not really sure if we would go through too much of the content in the shelf, but I can mention briefly that these are basically unboxed in terms of genre. And this is only primarily done because this is the way I boxed them. So it was a whole lot easier to unbox them in the way that I boxed them. And I also was really interested to start sorting them by genre as a new sort of means of organizing my collection. Because in the old Mancave, in the old house, I didn't have them by genre at all, or not as sort of dedicated as I do now. But I think this is going to be a really interesting thing to check out. So for now, I've basically unboxed them and I've placed videotapes on the two lower shelves, and then I got DVDs and Blu-rays on the two upper shelves. But apart from that, I am actually basing them on genre. So for this first section, we got some action movies. Second section, or third if you count the first one, this is also action movies. Then we got sci-fi movies over here. Then we got some more sci-fi, and then at the end I've done something which I've decided to call basically otherworldly. And this can be anything from, Darren Aronofsky to David Lynch. It's just a really mixed bag. I got Richard Stanley movies in there as well. And basically anything which just feel, well, otherworldly, basically. It's an old genre, but I thought it was fun to do something different. And a lot of the time there will be these movies which I just can't define, which are just too weird and strange and just mind-bogglingly alternate, that I don't know what to do with them. So I figured, yeah, maybe there's a good thing to actually have an otherworldly section. So that's what we got here. Then the stuff on top here, I mean, everything is very unsorted aside from genre. There's not even anything in alphabetical order, but I'm thinking I will probably do that eventually, sort of within each section. Like all the sci-fi will be alphabetical, as well as all the other genres. But that's something for the future. Now, looking at the section on top, I will obviously want to place some display pieces here, but so far I haven't really gotten around to making this. Everything is basically just jumbled on top. Like, why the hell is this here? This is like Steve's toy. I don't even know how that ended up there. So in any case, I'm not going to go through all the stuff on top because you've seen so much of this, and it's going to be so much more fun if I show you this once it's actually up and sort of finished in the way that I want to display them. So yeah, at least this will give you some idea of what the place looks like, and the sort of boxes I got up here, sort of something of a scope of just how much crap I have. But in any case, looking a little bit at this side of the room as well, we can just mention that we got some horror movies combined with some thrillers. And at first I was sort of going like, okay, I'm gonna have horrors, then I'm gonna have thrillers. And, then I just realized that it was very hard to sort of make the numbers match, because up until this point, much of this was very much fitting in terms of how much I had. Like I basically had 2 full sections of action, I had 2 full sections of sci-fi, and that was a pretty much good standard. But when it came to horror and thriller, I realized that I couldn't really fill one shelf. It was like 1.5 or 1.33, and then I felt like, you know what, I'm just going to combine horror and thrillers because they're so very sort of close to each other in terms of genres, and it's just going to be a whole lot easier to sort if I can just mash those together. But this was very much decided in the middle of the process, so that's why things are a little bit sort of, spaced out and jumbled. But yeah, so we got horror, thrillers. Then here we get to a sort of drama and comedy section, or basically, I guess these 2 are drama and comedies, and they're very mixed. So I might divide these eventually, sort of making 1 drama, 1 comedy. Haven't decided, but that's basically what I got. And then right down here at the end, we got my mockumentaries and found footage movies, which is very much a favorite subgenre of mine. And that is essentially everything in this room so far. Now, I can mention that one of the ideas which I have, which is what I'm going to do here eventually, is to probably take box sets and items which relate to each individual genre and place them on top. Like in this mockumentary section, I will have some mockumentaries or found footage related items, displaying them on top of the shelves. Whereas drama comedy will be drama comedy, sci-fi will be sci-fi, and yeah, you get the idea. But I think this should be pretty much enough for the Red Room. Hopefully you think that this little walkthrough was detailed enough. And now I think we could just go ahead and move over to the next one. So I guess it's time to check out the Green Room. And yeah, you remember the green room or the TCM room, don't you? And in case you don't, here's basically just a quick look at what the room looked like before I started making my rebuild. And yeah, I'm just going to continue with a time-lapse right away.
You just take it easy, yeah? We'll be there soon.
Alright, so we are now back in the green room, or the TCM room if you will, and as you can see here, there's also been quite a bit of work put into this place. I basically put up these 3 Billy bookcases, and these aren't actually standard size. You might think that they are, but they are actually reused shelves from the apartment. So we got 180 centimeter shelf, 180 centimeter shelves, and in the middle is actually a custom shelf which is slightly slimmer, and I'm pretty sure you can pick up on this if you look closely. So I think the one in the middle is like 76 thereabouts, but it's actually worked quite well because I wouldn't be able to fit in 3 80 centimeter shelves beside each other because I just don't have the space. But that little custom shelves, which are slightly less wide in the middle, actually worked out well. And I think I got a really sort of nice, coherent space around the side, and just definitely works very well in the room. And aside from this, here we obviously have all of my Texas Chainsaw Massacre collection, and you know this from before. I made a ton of videos about this. I tried to make actual sort of annual updates, which has actually been a while, so I'll probably make one of those in the near future. But aside from that, things aren't too organized. I've basically unboxed them and tried to organize them based on country, which is what I did in the past. But it's very jumbled and I haven't really had the time to make proper display shelves. But the idea is to have some of these display shelves in the middle, like you can see, these slightly larger sections. And aside from that, I haven't really decided anything, to be honest. And as you can see, there's still a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of boxes still in here. And I don't really know what's going on with the other side of the room. You can see that I got this metal cabinet from IKEA, the Fabrikur cabinet, which I've had in some of my previous videos. And this is sort of becoming a bit of a nuisance for me now right now, because it's one of these pieces which I honestly can't find the space for. It was a little bit off even in the old man cave, and even in the apartment it was one of these things which I'm constantly struggling with to find a space for, because you know I'm very much about symmetry. I like to have things sort of very symmetrical feeling in each room, and this is always one of those bizarre would-be centerpieces if I'm gonna have a symmetrical feel. And it's just very big and bulky, and for now it doesn't really fit anywhere in my rooms. So I might actually decide to sell this. I haven't decided. I mean, I love the look, but I can't find a good space for it. So that's why it's right in here for the moment. I don't think this position is very good in terms of display, because it sort of obstructs the window a little bit when you're coming into the room. So yeah, I don't think this is going to be the proper place for this. So we'll see what happens. And aside from that, you can also tell that I got some Benno sort of pillars here in the corner, or CD towers, which is because I basically had so many of these from the move. I had like 10. And so one of the thoughts was to actually create a wall of these, basically having them from left to right here on this wall. But this was one of those things which was good on paper. I had this, and then I tried it, but then when I looked at it and I'm sort of walking into the room, I just felt that this made the room so much smaller, and it sort of felt a bit sort of, you know, obtrusive and in your face, even though you can tell that I do have, you know, a bit of space here before I get to the window frame. So, I mean, on paper, it looks pretty good, and it might look good in this video as well, but I don't know. To me, I'm actually leaning against maybe not having shelves on this wall at all. Maybe just, I don't know, maybe a small table, maybe have a comfy chair. I don't know. This room is very much in the making, not really sure where I'm going. Everything that's basically decided is the shelves, because they fit very well in here, and it's just a very simple way to swallow all the content, have all the Texas Chainsaw in here, and I got some room to grow. So if I buy more editions, you know, I'm not gonna have an issue with fitting stuff in. So I'm not sure what else will happen in here. Maybe it will be a TCM room. Maybe it will be like a serial killer themed room. I'm thinking maybe I could do a display in the window, get an old chainsaw in there, put it on the windowsill or something. So yeah, I got a lot of thoughts and a lot of plans and a lot of maybes about this room, but nothing really substantial aside from, what you see in here now. So with that said, I think we might as well just move over to the next place, which would be the hallway. Now, as far as the hallway goes, there hasn't really been too much action in here in terms of sort of remodeling, because this room wasn't really anything I planned to do too much with. Aside from the fact that I've actually removed the doors, which you might not even consider, but the doors to the red room or the theater, it's actually been taken down. I basically just, unscrewed the hinges, lifted the doors off. The same goes for the door to the green room or the TCM room, as well as for the office. So I suppose that is one of the major changes in this room. But aside from that, there is one thing which I did. And that is that I put this Billy bookcase here. This is one of the bookcases which I had, but one of the things which you might remember about this corner is that this isn't just any corner. And if you don't remember what I'm talking about, I'm just going to go ahead and show you. So we got a Billy bookcase here, and then we got a Benny bookcase on the side, one of these towers. I just, bolted these together to get some stability, and you'll notice that there's no backing on here, but this isn't really any particular reason. It just happened that I had a shelf which didn't have backing, and placing it here was sort of the best way because this helped in terms of mounting and stuff. So yeah, and this is also not so much my shelf. I'm not going to be having too much movies in here because this whole section is basically an office section. You remember that I have my little... Now I know I'm calling this the office area, but it is sort of like an office area because this is basically, a place where my girlfriend will be when she's working from home, and I might be here when I'm working on the computer, or at least that's the way it's been. I'm planning to have my own little workspace in the room I've decided to call the office, and we're going to get back to that. But for now, this has been a sort of joint workspace, a shared workspace for both of us, and that's also why this shelf in particular hasn't been sort of filled up with movies already, because we're basically going to keep like some books in here and some stuff which is very much sort of shared. It's a shared area. We're going to keep like important papers and stuff like that. So this is actually going to be like a typical sort of office shelf where we will have, financial papers and whatnot, whatever you have in an office, things that are actually sort of useful and not just a bunch of movies, even though, movies are obviously very useful, or at least to me. Oh no, okay, so I'm rambling, but I just wanted to show you this shelf, and now I want to show you what's really cool about this. Because here we got some new doors. I haven't really had these in the past, but these are Oxberry doors, and they're, very common at IKEA. I think they've had them for a long time. I really like the very sort of vintage look. I decided to not include the little knobs for the doors because I think it looks much cleaner. But why am I talking so much about these doors? It's just doors. Well, the thing is not really the doors themselves, it's what's behind the doors. So if I just go ahead and open these up, there's actually a secret entrance to this little cabinet or garret space area, which might be something you remember from the previous video when I walked around the house when we were just moving in, and this was actually filled with a bunch of junk from the old cellars, but now we actually have our own junk in here, or at least one box of it. So I'm not really sure what we will do with this space. Probably this will just be a storage space, and eventually, I don't know, I might actually open up that wall to create some sort of hidden walkthrough or crawl space, which will actually be able to bring you from this room into the other red room, the theater room. But for now, I just thought this was a really cool way to create this hidden storage space, and also being able to use this space as a storage, just having this as a sort of simple office bookcase where you can put stuff and you can actually use it, but you can still sort of access this hidden little cabinet. And I've actually removed the cabinet doors which is on the wall originally, and see that this is just sitting there on the side. So yeah, this is a pretty cool and simple IKEA hack you can do if you want to create a hidden space like this. So if you have an opening in your wall, maybe a small garage space like this, you know, just do what I do. Basically just cut out the backing board for the lower portion. You can see that I've actually done this. You can see the edge underneath. And then for the top, I'm keeping the backing board, making this look like very much a simple regular shelf. But then when you open up the doors, you realize, you can actually walk through it. So yeah, very cool idea. And I basically saw something similar in an IKEA hack thread. But in that thread, I think they basically made like a full walk-through door by using some of these, you know, full height doors on a Billy bookcase, and when in fact there was something behind it. But they decided to do things a little bit differently, creating these half doors you have to crawl through. But I'm just so happy and excited about this solution, and I think it really works very, very well in this area because it just hides it so perfectly. Like, if you don't know this house, you would never guess that there's actually a hidden space behind there, because it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like, you wouldn't think that that's a place you can actually go. You know, if you're looking at the outside, you might think that, oh, the house probably ends there, and it's basically just this little sort of balcony area, if you will. And with that, it's just a really great illusion, I think. Very much of a panic room feel, where you sort of have to consider and think a bit, sort of thinking like, oh, is there something there? Should there be a space? And at the same time, in old houses like this, it's not like every space in this house is accessible. Like, you might remember that I have these cabinets, or this cabinet space in the red room sort of built into the wall, but at the same time, on the other side, there are no openings, which is like, I know there's space behind there, but there's no way to get to it, which means that probably that part of the house or that space behind there was never really decorated, meaning they never really made that into an accessible space. And a lot of the times with old houses, you will probably find this sort of nature of the house where it's not like every space is used. You know, a lot of the time you will have like an attic space which you can't access, and it's just, you know, you never really know with old houses. And so with that, it's very cool that you can sort of hide spaces and, you know, make these really intricate and sort of hidden places which you won't really think about. And I really like the idea of that. And that's also part of why I decided not to actually cover up the space on the bookcase here. Like, I didn't want to put a backing board on this. For one thing, I sort of assembled this and I didn't have a backing board, but then I figured, like, you know, I might as well place this here, and then in the future, maybe, just maybe, I don't know, I might put doors on this as well and sort of saw a hole in the wall there and make this actually like a hidden entrance, which makes that you can actually go through to the hidden cabinet space and crawl out that end. I don't know when I would need that, but if this was a horror movie, you can rest assured that at one point I'm going to be stuck in there, and there's going to be like a killer coming up the stairs, and then I'm just going to escape into my little hidden cabinet, and then I'm just going to come out here and run downstairs and everything will be fine. But enough about that. Let's just move over to the next place, which is obviously the office. And I don't know if you remember the office, but if not, here's just a quick recap. And so when we left this room, there was basically a whole lot of boxes in here, like you can see. But another thing which I want to show you in here before we begin the time lapse is actually this little closet space right here in the corner, which I haven't really shown in any sort of detail. So I thought I would just show you some of the interiors. And I mean, this is not a very big space, as you can see. And if I just try to cram myself in here, you can get a slight idea of just the overall atmosphere. It's essentially very cramped. It's all painted in white, aside from the floor, which is a weird bluish green. And we got some of these really sort of heavy-set, heavy-duty wooden boards, which are mounted, that, you know, you can't remove these. These are, I don't know if these are nailed or if they've been screwed or whatever, but yeah, these are definitely in here. So now we can just close this door and check out the other little closet space. And this is actually much larger. As you can see. Got the same blue floor. And here to the left, we actually have a concrete wall, which is basically the outside of the, I guess, the chimney for the house. If Santa's coming down, he's coming down inside this wall. Hopefully he's not, but yeah. Got some of these old coat hangers, some more coat hangers over here. There is a fixed shelf here, which is pretty high up, so I'm probably gonna keep this. There's some sawdust, and yeah, you can see there's a lot of sort of little nooks and crannies. So I was a little bit sort of thinking, like, wondering if this is safe or if this area will get very sort of cold and damp, but I mean, I think it's gonna be all right. So I will probably keep this shelf. Gonna start off by removing some of these hangers. Here's some additional hangers, just some of these old wooden pipes, not pipes, wooden, whatever these are. Just, yeah, I don't know if I can break these off, but yeah, we'll try to remove these just so I don't hit my head on them. So there's the second one in here. Then we just got a wall. Then we got the bluish green floor once again. So now you can see some of these orbs, which means that there's a ghost coming. Or maybe it's just that it's a dusty little old room, as you can see from up here. So let's see. Yeah, there's some more ghosts for you. So anyway, I think we've basically spent too much time in the closet already, so let's just go ahead and kick off the time lapse.
It's just like pictures in a book, Danny. It isn't real.
Here's Junkie.
And so now we are back in the office the way it looks now, and I thought we'd just take a moment to just walk in from the main entrance here, and you can just see that even just at the entrance I've actually done quite a bit of work already. And to the left we have this bookcase, which is this dark brown, and this was actually a very much of a custom project, and I'm really happy with the way this has turned out so far. And I'm just gonna walk in a little bit so you can see this. And this is very much a labor of love right here. And I had this idea that I wanted to build a very sort of shallow shelf which would wrap around this corner. And then basically there's this idea I have for the corner section with the little wardrobes, or what you will, these cabinet areas, but I'm gonna get back to that. But for now, I've basically taken some of these Billy bookcases, which were a older variation, which, you know, they don't sell anymore as far as I know, and it's actually not a black, but actually this dark brown, which has this lovely sort of wooden grain. You can sort of see, if I go in close, that you can actually see the wood grain on the shelf, which you don't really have anymore. And to the right here, this is actually a more modern shelf, and you can sort of see difference in the grain and the wood. Looking at this on sort of the left and the right, this is one of the old styles, which is very much a darkish brown, whereas this is very much a bit of a more modern design, which is like a flat black, and it doesn't have the grain. And I would have loved to gotten the same style for these, but to be honest, I mean, when you're not really thinking about it, not looking at it, you're not even thinking and realizing that these are two different types of colors. But when you look at sort of the larger areas like doors and basically a broader shelf, you're definitely going to be noticing that wooden grain. And these are actually not part of the same series, because this is very much an old Billy bookcase, which was actually a custom job. So I've actually shortened this. This is actually cut, as you can see. So this is not as wide as it should be. It used to be a 40 centimeter shelf, and then I cut it down to fit this exact width, so I can get it the same width as the, well, basically the chimney. This is basically like the base for the chimney. So this is not a wooden area. This is very much a concrete sort of, you know, pole or pillar, if you will, which is basically the base for the chimney. And that's also, you can see, you got this little sort of fold out, whatever, like a, whatever, you can see what it is. So in any case, we got this little bookcase here. For now, I've just placed some of my Crime Weekly, Veckans Brott bound magazines in here. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep them here, but I've just been filling stuff up because I have to get this idea of what I have and have to basically just focus on unboxing everything so I can get to sorting, because that will basically be the next phase, I suppose. But what I wanted to mention is that this Billy bookcase, and then we got the Bino pillar here, which are both actually not their full height. This room is very much a low ceiling. I think it goes up to 199 centimeters. And if you know your Billy bookcases, you will probably know that both the Billy and the Benno are actually 202 centimeters high. Now this was fine for the green room where I could fit them in just exactly. They were basically just tiltable so that I could actually tilt them up and put them in the room. But in this room, I'm missing way too much. I mean, even tilting them up, I would be missing 2 or 3 centimeters. So this was impossible. But what I decided to do here, which worked so well, was that I actually took all of these shelves and I cut them down from the bottom. Now, this is the first time I've actually done it this way. But the clever thing about this is that if you cut down shelves from the bottom, you will get a nice top surface. You won't get that rough edge, aside from the fact that I've made a little bit of damage there. But in terms of the top portions, these are the original top portions, which will look a whole lot better if you're working with these lower style shelves. So you might reach up and look and you won't see the sort of rough edge from the cutting. But you will also realize that it's quite easy to create shelves this way, and they won't even look like they've been altered at all. And this is the same process which I use for these shelves, as well as the shelves in the other side of the room, which I'm also very happy about. And these came from the exact same batch. I basically picked up these vintage styles, dark wood brown grain type shelves, and these were full-size Billy bookcases. I cut all of them down from the bottom to create this lower style shelf, because this is everything I could have in this room. And so I did a lot of planning, so trying to decide how high do I want the shelves to go, and then I just cut them down from below. And I mean, you can't even tell. I mean, if I didn't tell you, you would have no idea that I've actually cut down these shelves from the bottom. You can see there some slight damages on the edges, but aside from that, you're never gonna notice. And it's also really easy, if you want to take the old sort of baseboards, if you will, and basically just slide these in to sort of, you know, get that old Billy bookcase feel. But I haven't really decided to do that. And I can also mention that if you measure these correctly, and you know, you cut them at a very specific height, you sort of have to measure to get the holes right. But I mean, I didn't actually drill any new holes in this. I basically just reused the holes which I have in the bookcase. So these lower style boards or the lower shelves, they're basically just regular shelves that I've added to the existing holes, because these will go throughout the shelves, you know, from top to bottom. And if you're cutting them from below, you're still going to end up with these holes from, you know, all the way from your place of sawing, so to speak. And if you just measure this correctly, it's very easy to just plan for how much space you want to get here, so you can add these old baseboards and then just, you know, hide whatever flaws you want, in case you want the shelf to look very much like your classic Billy. It's just so very simple to do that. You don't even need to like add any screws. You can just basically push them in like this, and in case they fall over, well, then you just flip them up again. But yeah, I haven't really put these in yet because I haven't decided if I want to or not, simply because a lot of these shelves, aside from these wide ones which were cut down from the low, I've also had to resort to actually building custom solutions. And the reason for that is that I purchased a set of these shelves, and I basically got these secondhand, and they were 3 80cm size full height Billy bookcases, as well as 2 40cm full height bookcases. And you might wonder, like, but how did I go from 5 shelves into 4 shelves? And I mean, it doesn't make sense, but it's actually quite easy to convert Billy bookcases. So what I did is that I basically cut down 3 of the shelves. So 3 of these shelves are regular 80cm shelves, and I just loosed a portion of them from the bottom. But one of them is actually a 40cm shelf, and what I did is that I removed the side panels, which are the same height as your full height. They're the same height. So then I used 2 side panels from a 40cm shelf. And I actually also got, in the same package deal, I got these sort of over shelves, if you will. I don't really know what you would call them in English, but I think they're called over shelves. I got one in here, and it's basically just this section which you can mount on top of a Billy bookcase to add this extra layer of shelf. It's basically like, if you look at this, it's just like an extra top section, like the top shelf. I think it comes to roughly like 35 centimeters on top of your regular Billy. So that would be 202 plus 35. You want to add that. So I actually got top shelves for all the shelves I bought. So that meant that I had 3 top shelves for the 80 centimeters and 2 top shelves for the 40 centimeter ones. And this was actually really, really good, because then I was able to use the top boards from the over shelves. These are basically the same style of top boards that you have for your regular Billy bookcase, which have these little locking screws and the holes on the side. So it actually became really easy to just reuse the extra sort of base shelves, or which you will, the shelves that you use for the top and the bottom and the center shelf on a full-size Billy. Those are the same as the top shelf or the top level base shelf of an over shelf. So I actually converted my 40 centimeter shelf to a 80 centimeter one by basically disassembling the side panels and replacing the top and bottom section with some loose over shelf boards, if you will. But then the problem obviously became that I didn't have a backing board in the same color. But I solved this in a really simple, or well, I suppose it's a very sort of, I'm just going to go out and say it. I actually cut it in half. And you might wonder, like, but where is that? Because, yeah, this is a simple solution. It's not perfect, but it worked. Basically, what I did is that for one of these shelves, and I can't obviously remember which one now. I think it's this one over here. Let's see. Yeah, here you can actually see that on this shelf I got the backing board up until this point, and then there's no backing board, and that's because this is basically the shelf I built from scratch. So I had to take one of my bookcases and cut the backing board in half, just so I could use a backing board which had the same exact color, the same grain, the same style, because I really wanted that for some of these display shelves. And then I basically took, half this portion and used it on one shelf, and took the other half and used it on the other. So on this shelf, there's no backing board down here at the bottom, but I'm gonna have tapes in here as well, so you're not really gonna notice. And then on the other side, we have the same setup. So if I look in here, there's no backing board. You can see that I actually cut the backing board. So this backing board here and the one on the other side used to be one part for one big shelf, but I just split them so I could use them for the display sections like this, because it's basically just the display sections where I would need this backing board. And I realized that picking up this batch was a very good deal. I basically got 3 of these wide shelves as well as 2 of the 40cm shelves, and it just cost me 500 crowns, which is like nothing. It's like 50 euro, and it's such a good deal for so many shelves of this old style, which you can't get anymore. So I was really happy about that. But I also realized that this is actually quite a confusing shelf type to hunt for, because Billy bookcases have existed in so many variations over the years. There have been so sort of different type of wood variations, some dark, some brown, some grainy, some black, and it's just I just felt like this was such a good deal, and I really wanted to get matching shelves for the work I wanted to do in here, because I wanted to have shelves around the room and I wanted them to be somewhat similar in style. And it just felt like, you know, I'm just gonna max out and get as much as I can from these shelves that I bought. So I converted them into these 80cm shelves with the width, so I got 4 of those. And then for the extra 40cm portions, I basically used some of these over shelves, and I've moved stuff around and ended up with these custom built mini shelves. And to put it simply, these are basically 40cm over shelves, just stacked 2 on top of each other. You can see the little edges here, and one of them doesn't have a backing board because it's just made up of extra pieces. I basically used the side panels from one of the wider over shelves, the 80cm one, which I already scrapped because I needed the top and bottom boards. And then I used those side panels together with some 40cm top and bottom shelves from the Billy bookcases with the full height. Because I wasn't using those anyway, seeing I was taking the side panels from those to build one of the 80cm bookcases. You can hear it's a total mess, but I think it worked out great. And these little bookcases here, I think they will work very well together with the larger ones. And the idea here is that I basically want to create just these little sort of, I don't know, not really a display place, but I really like the symmetry on this, and I thought that I would actually place like some of these vintage style office lamps, like just get some nice little table lamps and get like one on each side, like it's a very sort of symmetrical feel. And then I'm actually planning to have a bit of an office area, a bit of a desk here. So there's going to be a small desk here in the middle, or at least that's the plan. Then I'm probably going to have like an office chair over here, so I can actually sit in this place, and it's going to be like a classic office which you would walk into, almost like a work area type situation. Not thinking that I'm going to have my desk against the window. I'm actually going to be sitting here looking out into the room, and this is a type of layout which I haven't really had in any of my old rooms. It is very luxurious, but I really like the feel, and I also want to go for this very sort of vintage office type feel, very sort of dark brown wood, very luxurious in some sense, I suppose. And yeah, something else to mention when we're talking about the dark wood is obviously this shelf over here. And like I mentioned, these are Billy bookcases. This is part of the same batch. So that was a 40cm shelf, which was custom cut, like I mentioned. Then we got a Benno shelf, which is actually a flat black and not the same tone, not the same grain. But then we got something new here. And this is actually a Bestow cabinet, or 3 Bestow cabinets. And you will have seen this in the time-lapse as well. But in case you weren't keeping up, here's just a quick explanation of what I've been doing. So here we got 3 Bestow sections, and then these are mounted on top of each other, and I've added these Bestow doors, these cabinet doors, and these were all purchased in 2020, so you can get these at IKEA. And as you can see here, this actually has a very, very similar dark wooden grain compared to the old batch of Billy bookcases, which is just a happy accident. I basically went to IKEA sort of looking for stuff which was dark brown, and then I saw the bestow and realized that, you know, this will actually match really, really well with the rest of the stuff in the room. And so, yeah, then I just made this little cabinet, very sort of shallow cabinet, which is nice because it's 20 centimeter, and then it sort of matched perfectly with the width of the old Benno shelf, which is why I tilted that on this side rather than having it open towards this end, because it's differently on the like it's not the same size. It's not square, it's actually 20 centimeter wide but 17 centimeter in depth, in case you didn't know. So that's why I tilted it on this side, to get the same exact width of the bestow. And yeah, you can see how much I've sort of had to move stuff around to figure this out. And this is also why I think it's such a great idea to use an Excel sheet. I mean, if you're planning to put a man cave together, you're trying to figure out like what kind of shelves you want to do, and especially if you're using IKEA shelves, it's very easy to create an Excel sheet, and it's very easy to plan for just using the grid space, you know, and it doesn't have to be that complicated. I basically thought like, okay, so one grid or one square on the Excel sheet is 20 centimeters, because I know that the Billy bookcases are very much based in 20s, like it will be 40 centimeter wide or 80 centimeter wide, and the Bennos will be 20. So then it becomes really easy to sort of puzzle and plan and move stuff around, which is why I was so sort of happy about doing this, and it became such a simple process in terms of planning this on an Excel sheet. So that's just a bit of a suggestion for you in case you're an IKEA hacker and you want to work with Billies, or if you want to plan a room. I really think an Excel sheet can actually help. But enough about Excel sheets. Now I want to talk about one of the most exciting parts about this room, if you ask me. And that is basically these little cabinets or closet spaces, if you will. And these are very much sort of like the garret space. I haven't really talked about the garret space, but this is over here. And the reason why I haven't mentioned this too much is because it hasn't really done much in here. And you will remember this from the old time-lapse in the old video when we were sort of putting everything together, and we've cleaned this up quite a bit, that you can see, really utilizing the space. But I'm not really making this a part of the man cave. It's not gonna be like I'll be storing movies in here, but just for fun, you can sort of see what that looks like. So the thing is that this garret space is basically something that should exist on this side, because you can tell that the room is very symmetrical, and sort of like the ceiling and the walls and all that. So basically there's a big empty space behind this wall. Now this isn't actually accessible, which is a bit of a shame. And I'm not sure, maybe in some future day I might consider opening up this wall. I mean, there's not going to be like a sort of livable, if you will, or a decorated space behind here. It's just basically going to be empty space, probably with like raw wood. And I mean, it's clear that they never really intended for this to be used in the same way as the storage space on the other side. So over here, instead, we just have these very, very small closet spaces. And I've been working on this, like you saw in the time lapse, and I removed some of these built-in wooden shelves, and then I replaced them with just a regular old Billy bookcase. And I actually kept the top shelf here. This is the only shelf which was in the closet space, which I've actually kept. So this is a very thick, sort of classic wooden boards, which are mounted to the wall and stuff. But aside from that, it's just a Billy bookcase. And I've actually moved this out a bit because I wanted to align better with the top shelf. And I thought this would just look like a better solution, more of, you know, just a more coherent style, and not as sort of noticeable that, you know, this is a Billy, this is a sort of custom shelf. I think they really blend together much better. But yeah, in here, I'm not 100% sure on what I'm doing. For now, this is basically just some random books, some random games. I haven't really filled it up. I'm not really sure what I'll be doing in here. But I do actually have quite the plan for this other closet space. And in here, I have already basically unboxed all of my pornography and erotic material. And if you don't know this channel, you won't know, but now you do know. And that is that, I have quite a bit of erotica. I basically collect vintage erotica, and I have videotapes, DVDs, some Super 8 movies, got some books, got some magazines. It's just a whole bunch of stuff. And I thought it would be really cool to just create this very sort of dedicated space for all of my adult material. And I thought it would also be really sort of fun to have it in this very sort of cramped area, almost like a little secret compartment here. So yeah, that's basically what I've done so far, just stacking a bunch of magazines and everything in here. It's a bit on the rough side, but I like it, and I'm probably gonna sort this so it becomes a bit more sort of organized. But it's just gonna work for now, because like I said, I've basically just been unboxing everything and just trying to place stuff so I can see how much I got. So yeah, but that's it for this space. It's very cramped, but you can actually walk in and stand in here, and you don't have to hit your head. I mean, you do have quite a bit of space until you hit the ceiling. If we just flip this around, you'll see just how much I got. So yeah, I can stand in here. It's definitely not uncomfortable unless I go in here and I sort of crouch down a bit. But I am very much out of breath because I'm just so excited and so sort of hyped up to talk about this finally. You can tell that I've filled up these shelves nicely. I haven't put too much effort into sort of displaying stuff where it's supposed to go, but I put some stuff up just to get an idea of what I have. And some of this stuff I also played around with, trying to create some sort of idea for display sections, but it's nowhere near completion. And just to mention some of the other stuff I got in here, in the red room there was obviously a whole lot of genre sorting going on, and I've tried to do some sorting here as well. And the things I have in here are basically things which I removed from the main room. The red room is basically like the main room of the collection, but here I took out some of these sort of specialty genres. Like for one thing, I collect the Video Dynamic Bahrain label, which is a very old Swedish bootleg label. But like, if I have a label that I collect, which, like a specific subgenre or something that's very sort of specific in that I collect it for that reason, like I'm not just buying it because it's a cool cover, it's a cool movie, I collect it very much because, it's part of that subgenre or that label or that whatever. Then I figured, wouldn't it be nice to have that kind of stuff in a separate space? So that's what I'm going for in here. Here I got like all of my sort of special interest titles. So here are my Video Dynamic Bahrain bootleg tapes. Then we got some retro editions over here, which is basically modern day movies which are released on VHS, even though they're released like today, like in 2020 or thereabouts. And this also includes some DVD editions, which sometimes they are basically like combo packs. You will get VHS and DVD together, so then I put those DVDs here as well. And I've also placed some of these movies here which are very much retro inspired, like you will have Stranger Things, or I don't know what else to mention, like Bandersnatch, Kung Fury, Terrifier, just some of these movies which feels like they are very much grounded in being an homage or celebration of the 80s, or like a, they're made with the intent of feeling like a very sort of vintage style movie from a different age, different time. And then I figured, okay, they actually fit quite well in here. So that's the overall idea of what I got over here. Then on the other side, I've decided to place all of my weird tapes. And if you know this channel, you know that I'm very much a fan of weird tapes. And this can be basically anything, but to name some examples, we got some instructional videos, promotional tapes, and just very, very weird things which aren't really movies. Like I will have here, for example, here's like a promotional video for an IKEA Factum series, which like, I don't even know where you would get this. I'm guessing this is just like a promotional tape which they give to employees. I have no idea. But stuff like that, which I found at flea markets, usually very cheap and very, very strange. Like things that you won't be able to sell. It's a very good alternate description of this specific subgenre or special section for me. But you know, I like weird stuff like that, like promotional music, videotapes, or whatever. It's just anything that's just not like a real film, something that's just very, very weird and undefinable. And right next to that, I also have a slight section of documentaries down at the bottom. And then I got also my Vinegar Syndrome titles in here, because this is also one of those labels which I collect primarily. I mean, I love the movies, I love watching them, but it's a very sort of, you know, like a specialty label which you want to collect basically because, oh, it's Vinegar Syndrome, I want to get more Vinegar Syndrome titles. And I've also included some other box sets like that, which are part of these sort of, I suppose, modern or new collector's labels, if you will. And in that, I've decided to include stuff like, you know, like Arrow Video or Second Sight, which I recently started collecting. And a lot of the time, they will come in these very sort of similar sized and similar style boxes, which are just very sort of luxurious, but still sort of simple boxes. Like it's a big cardboard box, roughly the same size. Probably got some books in there, promotional cards, whatever. But they're very much in a coherent feel and very sort of known to be collectible labels, so to speak. But yeah, that's basically what I'm going for here. Some of those specialty genre, specialty labels, which I collect on Blu-rays and DVDs. Some documentaries, weird tapes, retro editions, video dynamic Bahrain. Ah, God, can't speak. That's why this video is obviously too long. And then we got just random stuff at the top shelves, and now I'm absolutely fucking exhausted. And so with that, I figured we might as well just go back into the hallway, because I want to actually end this in the same place where I begun. And yeah, I hope you really actually, one more thing before we go, I did add a shelf over the staircase here. You might not realize, but there's actually a board over there, and I'm not sure if this is too interesting, but I thought I would just as well show you, because this is one of the only things I haven't really mentioned in this video yet, and that is that I have actually placed this wooden board here. I just put up some simple little wooden brackets and then laid a board on top here, and the idea is probably to keep some of these large boxes on display here, but at the same time, I don't know if I want to build this higher, like build more sections just to have some really big display pieces here, but that's all in the future. So just a quick mention that there is a board there which I put in like a custom build. But in any case, that is it from me today. I really hope you enjoyed this new update to the Man Cave, and I'm really looking forward to showing you the place once everything is sort of placed where it's supposed to be and things are a bit more organized. But hopefully this was good enough for now, so you can sort of stay tuned and wait for the next video. But that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and as usual, hope to see you all next time.